Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the final installment of Inside the Corner Office for 2022. We have a really incredible guest joining us today, but before I introduce him, I wanted to quickly remind you of a couple of other events that we have before the end of the year. This Friday, December 9th, we'll be in Manchester, New Hampshire for a Capitol Hill Report breakfast with the senior Senator Jeanne Shaheen. On Monday, we'll be here in Boston. We'll be hosting a very special post-election analysis program featuring Jonathan Allen, a senior national political reporter at NBC News. And last but not least, we'll wrap up the year in Washington, D.C. on December 15th, where United States Secretary of Labor will be our guest for a Capitol Conversation breakfast. And many of you know who Secretary of Labor is the former mayor of this great city and a former state representative from here in Boston, Marty Walls. As always, you can find more information and register for any of these programs on our website. But today, we're honored to welcome the Commissioner of the National Hockey League, Gary Bettman. Gary has led the NHL since February of 1993, making him the longest-serving commissioner in professional sports. Over the course of his tenure, he has overseen the expansion of the league to new markets and has worked to increase enthusiasm, interest, and involvement in hockey from the youth level and up. He's also spearheaded new initiatives like the Winter Classic Outdoor Game Series, which is returning to Fenway Park in just a few short weeks. Needless to say, we're really honored that he could take the time to join us today. Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. It's great to be with you and the New England Council.
You know, Gary, we always start these conversations by asking our guests a little more on the personal level. So, as I mentioned, you've enjoyed a very long, very successful career in professional sports management with the NHL and early in your career in the NBA. But tell us a little more about your career path and how you got to where you are today.
The story is too convoluted and too long to go into detail, but I went to Cornell University. I went to the New York University School of Law. I'm a lawyer by training.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has to disconnect over that. And I practiced at a big firm in New York, Proskauer Rose. And I went from there in 1981 to the NBA as assistant general counsel. I was the 25th employee, including support staff. I was there for 12 years. And when the NHL was looking for a new leader, I'm the one who survived the search. And that was 30 years ago. And, you know, people, when I introduce me, talk about 30 years, longer serving, and all that does is make me feel old.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. But as you just said, last year you became that longest-serving active commissioner in professional sports, and you're now closing in on that 30 years as the NHL commissioner. What keeps you in this job for so long?
First and foremost, I love the game.
Mm-hmm.
Love people around the game, especially our fans. We have, I believe, the most avid fans in all the sports, and the game itself. The values of the game, it brings people together. For young people in particular, it focuses on teamwork and physical fitness and leadership and all the important qualities, life lessons for young people when they grow up. And when you see how our players conduct themselves on and off the ice, I consider it an honor and a privilege to be associated with the game. And, you know, running a sports league, particularly in this day and age, is never without its challenges. And that's part of what energizes me and keeps me going.
Mm. You know, one of the biggest events of the NHL season is the Winter Classic. And as I mentioned, it's just about less than a month away. Needless to say, we are thrilled that it's back, and it's back in Boston at our beloved Fenway Park. But tell us a little more about the history of that series, which I know has been, you know, very, very popular with the fans.
The Montreal played Edmonton probably over 20 years ago. Was the first experiment in playing outdoors. that was a cold day. It was 20 below zero, as you would expect in midwinter in northern Canada. But as we started with the first Winter Classic was in Buffalo, played in the snow, and I think what it looked like and what it felt like and the fan reaction to the very first Winter Classic is really what set us on the way. Sidney Crosby won that game for Pittsburgh in a shootout, but the look and feel of the game and the way the fans reacted to it, and the fact that I think we sold 72,000 tickets in 20 minutes meant that we had really found something that was very special. And then we started playing in iconic stadiums, much like Fenway. And, you know, when you go to a great sports town like Boston, I mean, New England sports fans are incredible. So this is the third time we're playing an outdoor game in the greater Boston area. We played in Fenway previously, we played in Foxborough, and now we're coming back. And actually, the winter carnival effect that they sort of have now in Fenway every winter when they put up the ice really started with us and the first Winter Classic that we played at Fenway. So I should have asked for a royalty from a sports group as they continued on the tradition of putting ice in Fenway, but it's a great environment to play in, whether it's summer or winter. In fact, I remember in 1967 being at a Eugene McCarthy rally at Fenway Park when he was because I was at Andover, Phillips Academy for the summer, and that was one of the trips they took us on. I know that's a tangent that we don't have to go on to. Boston's just a great city. They're great sports fans, great hockey in Massachusetts and throughout New England. And, you know, I have a bunch of connections to New England, including the fact that I've had a house in Vermont for 30 years. So I get it. And frankly, we're thrilled to be coming back.
Well, that was my next question, and you sort of already answered it, that this is the third time the Winter Classic is being held here in this great city of Boston. Fourth time that the Bruins participated. And, you know, my question would have been, there are so many great cities in the United States to choose from, but, I'd love to hear why you always remain loyal to Boston as one of the sites that it should participate. But you touched on a little bit. Sports fans are on yeah.
Well, also, you know, the Bruins have the history and tradition, an original six team. You know, most of the teams in Boston at one time or another have gone through lean periods, but not the Bruins. Bruins fans are incredible, and hockey's great. I mean, it is something that permeates New England, and when you get to play in iconic venues like Fenway Park, and the Fenway Sports Group now owns the Penguins, so that kind of makes them a little bit closer family than when we first started doing this. You know, New England is a great place to be around the holidays or around, you know, New Year's. And so this will be a festive celebration for the community and of our game.
Can you touch on how an event like this also helps to boost the economy, especially those businesses around Fenway who are typically, I think, less busy during the winter months?
You would think they'd be less busy during the winter months. Yeah, I mean, the economic impact is somewhere in the tens of millions of dollars. We have guests coming from all over the world for these games. The media coverage is worldwide. Turner's covering the event for us on TNT, which is now Warner Brothers Discovery. But the fact of the matter is this will bring yet more attention to Boston and to New England. It'll bring more attention to the game. And for the merchants around Fenway Park, this is a big deal because, you know, hockey fans are used to playing or watching their team play indoors in, you know, 15 to 20,000 seat venues. To be in venues 2, 3, 4 times our usual size, to take sports, which is the ultimate reality show, and subject our sport to the elements, making the ice, creating an atmosphere. And what also happens, and people should really tune in if they're not going to be there to watch it, we dress up the stadiums in a way where it takes people's breath away because we make it very holistic to the community that they're in. but it doesn't look like the same Fenway where the Red Sox play. And so just seeing how we set it up and how it looks and feels is really a special treat, not just for us, but for the fans who get to react to it.
Mhm. Of course, the highlight will be, the game itself. The Bruins takes on, Pittsburgh Penguins on January 2nd. But there are also some other events leading up to that big game. Tell us a little more about that. Winter Classic Plaza at City Hall.
We're going to have a fan fest, interactive theme park, if you will, for our fans. For a couple of days, there'll be a big pregame around Fenway, which will have music and star power. And so it's going to be a celebration of the new year. It's going to be a celebration of Boston and New England, and it's going to be a celebration of hockey and the Bruins. So it's a combination of making what is, typically just a regular season game. This may be the biggest deal regular season game you see in any sport because of the attention that it genders and how the fans react to it. And watching the fans going in larger numbers, as I mentioned, than usual, and doing it outdoors and tailgating and doing the things that you might do for other sports makes it a really special and unique opportunity.
The NHL has a number of corporate sponsors, and you'll say we're very proud because many of them are New England Council members. How do these businesses work together with the league to achieve the goals of the league in your social initiatives?
We think it's very important to work with our partners as we associate our brands together, that we use our respective platforms to promote each other and to promote the values of the game. As I mentioned before, we're very proud of the values that our game instills, particularly in young people, and the way our players represent their communities and our game, we think is first rate. And so doing that with important local partners lets us deliver that message even better. We like to view the use of our platforms and working with our partners as a way to make a difference in people's lives in the community. And I think we do that with all the initiatives and programs that we have.
I agree. During your tenure as commissioner, the league has expanded significantly, adding new teams and venturing into different parts of the country. What's your vision for the league's growth going forward?
Well, a couple of things. The expansion was never a question of manifest destiny. But, we have 32 teams, 7 of which are in Canada. And there were a lot of places, both in Canada and the US, that didn't have teams and kept expressing interest in wanting to be part of the NHL. And that's seen us over the last couple of decades in places like Florida, in places like Texas, in Arizona, in California, and wherever we have teams, the teams connect very well with the community, they draw well, and as importantly, youth hockey explodes when we have a new team in a place. And, so we most recently put teams in Las Vegas and Seattle. Both teams are doing extraordinarily well. And in the case of Vegas, initially everybody was critical and saying we were crazy, but meanwhile, the team's doing great. And now every other sport saying, well, maybe we should be in Las Vegas too. The NFL followed, baseball and basketball are now talking about it. I suppose imitation is the highest form of flattery, but we have tried to respond to the expressive interest. More importantly, going forward, it's how we use technology and digital platforms and data to give our fans more of a connection to the game, particularly our younger fans. And so you'll see innovations like puck and player tracking, which we call NHL Edge, which puts out millions of data points a game and lets you inside the game in ways you could never do it before, whether it's how fast the player's skating, how much he's skating, how fast the puck is traveling, things that you could only see, and have an intuitive sense to, but now you can get the raw data. And games are being produced by our media partners in ways that, particularly with HD TV, which everybody now takes for granted, it really takes what we think is the best experience in person and brings it home more. So we're looking to grow our fan base and give them ways to connect with the game that doesn't change the game for technology, but uses technology around the game to bring our fans closer to the game.
Mm. Given the New England Council's focus on federal policy, we always like to talk with our guests about a federal policy priority. And I know that a top legislative priority for the league last year was the Willie O'Ree Gold Medal Act, which was signed by President Biden in January 2022. The council, of course, as you know, also honored Willie at our recent annual celebration. But tell us a little more about why he was selected for the honor and the bipartisan support that you received from Congress.
Well, frankly, it serves my point about using sports and hockey in particular to bring people together. And in Washington these days, that's no small feat. Willie is an extraordinary person. I've gotten to know him over the years. Obviously, he's been called the Jackie Robinson of hockey. And what most people didn't know is he played professional hockey at various levels with one eye, which he kept as a secret, which was extraordinary. But the way he handled himself, the lessons he taught, the elegance, grace, and class, which he had to respond to, the harsh realities of being the first Black player in the league, have been extraordinary. And then when we were lucky enough to find him, not that he was lost, we just didn't know where he was. And the hundreds of thousands of children and young people that he has worked with to instill the values of the game, to teach them a love for hockey, as he's worked with the league for the last couple of decades. He has been an extraordinary part of our game. And I was lucky enough to be inducted in the same class with him at the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2018. And as extraordinary as what he accomplished on the ice by being a pioneer, what he has done after his playing career was over, in bringing the game to more people and, as I've said, instilling the values of the game, that's what really has made him a spectacular contributor to our game.
I agree. That's one of the reasons why we also recognize him at our annual celebration. I'm not going to ask you for any predictions on January 2nd, but my last question would be, I'd love to know, as you traveled all over this country, if you could just give me 3 towns that you say the sports fans there are so knowledgeable and they're so loyal. Give me 3 towns.
I'm going to give you the cop-out answer. I love all my children a little differently.
Yeah.
And so I never pick favorites, but I will tell you, hockey in New England is a gem, and we're so proud to be such a big part of the community.
Well, speaking of proud, we're very proud to have you as our guest this morning, as the last guest inside the corner office of 2022. And I do look forward to seeing you on January 2nd. Thank you very much, Kerry.
Well, happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stay safe, stay healthy.
You too.